All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kate Matthews Bray, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at NJIT. Thank you for joining us for session 2 of Jumpstart Your 2025 Job Search, a 5-part webinar series designed exclusively for NJIT alumni. I'm excited to welcome you to this evening's session, which focuses on your resume versus your LinkedIn profile, what you need to know. So before we jump in, I just want to share some details of how tonight's webinar will work. When you entered, your microphones were muted, and we kindly ask you please keep your microphones muted during the presentation. We want this session to be interactive, and there will be times where you'll have a chance to ask questions and share comments, and we'll let you know when those happen. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off. It's whatever you feel most comfortable. And please feel free to ask questions or type comments in the chat box throughout the session. We'll take some time at the end and we can answer them. And lastly, this session will be recorded and available on demand. All right, let's get started. In this session, you're going to learn how to write powerful resumes and LinkedIn profile bullets, 9 resumes do's and don'ts that will debunk a lot of myths and save you time, how to maximize advantages of LinkedIn search to improve the odds of hiring managers spotting your profile, how to address common issues like gaps in your resume, too much or too little experience, or job hopping, and what you'll need to know to adapt your resume for your LinkedIn profile. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Rob Hellman. Robert Hellman, president of Hellman Career Consultant, is a seasoned career executive coach with over 20 years of experience at companies like American Express and JP Morgan Chase. He has guided over 1,000 individuals and organizations and delivered workshops at top business schools. A Forbes contributor and author, Rob also teaches at NYU and supports nonprofits. He holds a BS in economics and math from Binghamton University and an MBA in finance from Fordham University. So with that, I am pleased to turn this over to Rob Hellman.
Thanks so much, Kate. Hi, everybody. Good to be talking with you all again. So just quickly, before we dive into the content of your resume versus your LinkedIn profile, I just want to mention that, as Kate said, you're going to get the recording. Kate will make that available to you. If you want to get the slides, you can get the slides at any time, as well as this LinkedIn profile checklist that I'm going to talk about later. At any time, go to this link, hccgo.net/NJIT 21925. Just type that into your browser. You'll fill out a form if you want to get on my mailing list for occasional tips. Otherwise, just skip it, or maybe you're already on it, and you'll get taken to the page where you can download the slides and the checklist. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, let's start to get into the content. And I'll be talking till roughly 50 minutes into the hour, give or take. Then I'll be starting to take your questions. We might go a little past the hour, depending on the number of questions. But feel free to type your questions into the chat, as Kate mentioned, and we'll get to them then, okay? All right, so the context for this webinar is this 6 steps to success methodology that I use for my clients and in my Hellman Career Consulting business. Last webinar, last month, we talked about planning and organizing your job search campaign. This month, we're talking about your resume and LinkedIn, which is about the marketing materials, right? There's more than that. There's cover letters, there's emails, there's only so much we can get to, but I really want to focus on your resume and LinkedIn profile because they're both essential to a really great job search. We'll talk more about both of those in a second. And underlying this whole methodology, as I mentioned last time, is it's like a sales methodology. You want to pretend you're like the best salesperson and the best marketer in the world for yourself. That's how you want to think about your job search. And any great salesperson needs great marketing materials. That's what your resume is. That's what your LinkedIn profile is. So that's the mindset you want to bring to this. So now let's just take it a step further. Now, this is a slide I shared with you last time when we were talking about planning and organizing. I want to share it with you again because it really gives you the context for creating a great resume and great LinkedIn profile, which is positioning yourself for the audience. Like, it's all about the audience. Any great salesperson will tell you, and any great marketer will tell you, you got to start with the audience, what's going to resonate with them. So you always want to be thinking that way, okay? And this is like where I see this all the time. A lot of what I do with clients ensuring that they're positioning themselves, they're talking to the audience in a way that's going to resonate. So you want to start thinking that way. Just to give you a couple of quick examples, and I covered these last time, so I'm just going to go over this super quickly. When I talk about positioning, here's an example of a business analyst who's trying to go from banking to higher education. My client originally, she had things like doubled credit card balances and drove a 57% increase in revolver retention, which would absolutely not resonate with an academic institution like NJIT. They'd be like, what? Credit card balances? We don't care about that. What's a revolver, right? It makes a lot of sense if you're in the credit card or retail business of a bank. No sense at all if you're in an institution of higher education, which was my client's target. So she made very, very simple changes to this. And she came up with, instead of double credit card balances, doubled marketing's return on investment. Every organization cares about ROI. And for the second one, she just got rid of the word revolver. She just said increased retention. Every institution cares about retention. With institutions of higher education, it's about retention of students. So simple things like that can transform your positioning, your pitch, and make it much more likely you're going to get an interview. So keep those things in mind. And when I talk about positioning, you want to position yourself for your target, not your last job, which is a common mistake. Make sure you're talking about your experience that's in a way that's going to resonate for what you're going for, not the way you're describing it now and the way your employer describes it, unless it's the same as what you're going for. And when I say position yourself, I mean try to do it the same way across all your interactions, your emails, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, what you say to people in informational meetings and interviews. It's the same messaging. Okay. Now, LinkedIn is a bit different than these others, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Okay. But just keep in mind that you want to try to do the same pitch whenever possible. And whenever possible is a key word when it comes to LinkedIn. We'll talk more about that shortly. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to actually do an exercise with you to get started. We're going to start talking about resumes first. Then we're going to move on to LinkedIn and how to adapt your resume and when it makes sense to copy and paste, when it makes sense to not do that and do something different and other things like that. Okay. So what I want to do is share a resume. This is a before resume. And my client came up to me and said, what do you think of this resume? And I said, I don't know. What is your job target? Because I can't tell you if it's a good resume or not until I know the audience. You have to think exactly the same way. My client's target was finance director in a big media company, like a Fortune 500 media company. Maybe reporting into the head of financial planning and analysis, maybe one or two down from a CFO, right? Think of it that way, with some team under her, okay? So now that I understood the target, I can evaluate this resume. And so what I want to do is, before I get into it, I'd like you to tell me what you think of this resume. Does this resume position Susan for the finance director, one or two down from the CFO job target that she's hoping to land something in? Okay. What do you think? Tell me what works, what doesn't work. Do this in the chat. I'm going to take a look at the chat. I'm going to give you a minute and see what you come up with. So I'm looking forward to your comments in the chat. Go ahead, take a look and let me know what you think. Any thoughts? Any comments? Okay. Finance director should have more stats and numbers. There are way too many bullets in the list. Former positions don't correlate with the target. Okay, very great comments. Keep them coming. I want to see if I can get a couple more from you. Other thoughts? Does this resonate? Would this resume resonate with the target audience? And if not, tell me why. Okay, academic qualifications, more technical information on finance. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. Let's see what else. Oh, we got a couple other things here. Doesn't use data to support a performance. Summary should have details targeting the new role, leadership qualities. Okay, I want to stop right there. I appreciated all your comments. I think the one that was, to me, most important was summary should have details targeting the new role, like leadership qualities. I love that. Someone else has typed in, there's no focus on the impact of responsibilities. I agree. That's a big deal too. But the most important thing in terms of positioning is like, are you speaking to what the audience wants? The audience wants a finance director, a leader, right? Someone who can lead a team. What does that imply? It implies not just maybe like someone who's got a little bit more of a strategic sense, like a big picture, right? Like who's got that leadership experience. Now, when I look at the summary, what do I see? I see, um, I don't know what's going on here. Like, do you want to be a budget analyst? Do you want to be an accountant? Are you a junior person? Are you like an entry level right out of college? Or are you like a CFO? Like, I don't know. I can't tell, right? MBA degree with finance concentration, that's more sometimes that you bring that up, that sounds like maybe more junior, like you recently graduated. Okay. Anyway, so um, that's one issue. Another thing I see is and no one mentioned this, but I think it's super important. Like the most recent job has nothing to do with finance director. It has something to do with health analytics, Carmen healthcare, establish a new customer service function, not really focused on finance leadership, right? Not great. Okay. Then now we're starting to get somewhere in the second role, right? So the summary is confusing. The most recent job is misleading. The HarperCollins, we're starting to get somewhere. But even this, like now someone mentioned there are no accomplishments. I agree. I mean, that would make that's less about positioning and more about differentiating you from the competition. So positioning means, are you speaking to what they need? So I think HarperCollins sort of does speak to what they need in a way, but it doesn't talk to how good they are versus the competition, the impact, and that's a big missed opportunity. And so I totally agree with that. Okay. So keeping all this in mind, I appreciate your comments. I thought they were really thoughtful. Thank you for sharing them. Uh, I want to look at the after resume, and I'd like you to tell me in the chat what you think of the after resume. I'm looking at the chat again. Does it improve in terms of the positioning, in terms of the impact, the differentiation? Give me your thoughts on this. Any thoughts? What do you think? Is this an improvement from the prior version? Remember to keep the audience in mind, right? Finance director, big media companies. Okay, easy to read summary section. The experience is in line with the job they were going for. Showing leadership and skills. Yes, an improvement. Okay. It's clear what she's seeking and where she's excelled. I agree. Yeah, I think you're getting it. Like I agree with this. Like she's specifying her achievements good for the role, right? It shows that she's managed a number of people, right? All stuff that they're going to care about, right? So let me give you my thoughts, right? So what she did was she created a summary section. It's a bit longer, but it's very targeted. It shows in like so the first she didn't want the first thing they see or almost the first thing they see to be the Carmen Health Analytics, right? She wanted them to see finance director right away with that title. she's positioning herself the way she wants them to see her, right? For that box in the org chart that she is going for, right? In 1 second, they understand that. In 4 seconds, they see that she's got media company experience, big media company, Viacom, NBC Universal, HarperCollins. They see it right away, as well as these other differentiators, like she's worked in FP&A, M&A, accounting, right? She's got all this stuff, right? And then she's got her greatest hits, very accomplishment oriented, to address the point somebody else made earlier, that it's all about the impact, right? In a summary, right? So that's the summary, okay? So this is a pretty good pitch, for that role. Then what she did, which is also very interesting to me, is what she decided to do is she didn't lead with the company here. Carmen Health Analytics, because she figured that has nothing to do with a big media company. I'm going to lead with the title, and I'm going to change the title from consultant. If you remember, let me just go back. The title before was just consultant, right? Now it says acting VP of Finance, Chief Accounting Officer, Consultant. So what she basically did was add some other descriptions to the title that she felt she could do. So they wouldn't see her as this, what is a consultant? What does that mean? Is that having to do with finance director? It's not clear. And they're looking at your resume in just a few seconds. Like your message has to jump off the page in the 15 seconds or less they're looking at your resume. So it wasn't doing that. Consultant certainly not helping that, right? The other thing she does, which is very interesting, serve in a variety of senior finance related roles. What she did, if you look at the before, she took out, established a new customer service function. Even though that was a significant accomplishment, they wouldn't care. Her audience wouldn't care. So this underscores a very important point. Your resume is not a literal laundry list of every single thing you did, just the way you described it at the time. What it is basically a story about how you can help them, where you want to emphasize or keep in the things they're going to care about and de-emphasize or take out the things they won't care about. So in this case, she just took it straight out and she emphasized the finance stuff she did in this. Then when she went to HarperCollins, she did something else that was very interesting. Here, what she did was a couple of things. First off, here she actually was inconsistent. She put the company name first, where before she had the job title first, right? For Carmen Health Analytics. Now she's putting HarperCollins first. Now, you might say, well, that's inconsistent, and I understand. And consistency is very important in terms of speed of looking at something. So you don't have to figure out what they're doing. That's why you want to be consistent, right? But sometimes it makes sense to break the rule. In this case, she felt the case for highlighting big media company was bigger than the case for consistency. That was her, and I agree with it, you could go the other way, but on balance, I agree, right? And what she did, now this is very interesting. She's going for finance director. If you look at this is very important what I'm about to show you. If you look at the prior resume, it says divisional chief financial officer responsible for the financial strategy, right? Now that's pretty impressive. She was a divisional CFO. She took that out because she felt they might think she's overqualified. She wanted a finance director role. She didn't want a CFO role. So she took that out. Even though you're thinking, oh, I should, I had all this great responsibility. I should let everybody know how great I am. Really, what's more important than how great you are is how much your pitch is going to resonate with that audience. It's going to tell your audience you have what they want. And in this case, she felt CFO might turn them off actually, because they're not looking for that. That's how you need to think, right? It's so much about what the audience wants, right? And then she, like to somebody else who made the point, thank you for making this, but the accomplishments, like just to give you an example, like before, she said, I'm just pulling a bullet at random, led the fast-track sale process of a non-core media business. The after, led the fast-track sale process of a non-core media business leading to 20 million in revenue. I think we'd all agree that having the impact is way more powerful than just saying what you did. That's what makes it you more memorable. Really, it's not because a lot of your competitors are going to have done the same types of things as you, but how well you executed on those responsibilities is the differentiator. And it's also like telling a mini story. It makes you more memorable. So these are some of the things you want to keep in mind with a resume. I want to keep going. Okay. So in terms of the summary section, like it's so important. You really want to have a very concise, powerful summary section that, as I was mentioning when we were talking about planning and organizing last month, if you do your pitch the right way, like your value proposition, the summary section is essentially the outline for that pitch. That you want to use that same value proposition you're creating in the summary section in all your outreach, on potentially your LinkedIn profile about section, your emails, your cover letters, all of that. And the way I would think about it is you want to put the box you're in the org chart. They need to know where you fit in. If you're trying to create a new position that doesn't exist, it's going to be a really long job search. You may never get hired. It might take 5 years. Okay. If you want something quicker, you really try to fill a box that exists. Okay. What differentiates you? This could go above or below the bullets. It doesn't matter. Don't worry so much about the literal order of things. Really focus more on getting this information across quickly. Greatest hits, right? High impact, accomplishments. So they don't have to go looking on page 2 for that great thing you did. And you could throw this in too if you have something to say. Like maybe in this case, my client had like great quotes, like some great LinkedIn recommendations. And some people wrote on her LinkedIn recommendations, exceptional leader and team player, thought leader. She said, I'm going to put those in, and it helps. So I want to talk now. So that's sort of the big picture overview of the resume. I want to talk about some specific issues that some of you might run into that are fairly common. I see resumes all the time where clients jumped around. Like one of the issues that they had very short tenure at like the last 3 or 4 roles, which people are going to be thinking, well, A, are they going to want to stick around if I hire them? Maybe they're going to leave after a year, which I don't like. Or B, maybe there was a problem. Maybe they kept getting fired, right? So what can you do? It's not always easy to solve, but a couple of things you can do involve things like maybe you can combine those short stints under one heading. Maybe you can call it consulting or something like that. Or maybe consider leaving something out if it was really short. You might consider that. But just a couple of ideas. Another thing, this is super common. If you're trying to get to the next level, say you're trying to go from like like in this case, that was the finance, you were a finance director, you want to be the head of FP&A, financial planning analysis or something like that. You want to be the next level up. And you never had that title. Or I had a client, for example, who was here, let me just give you examples. Like when the prior titles don't match the target. I had a client who wanted to be a chief information officer. That was her job target. She never had that CIO title. What we came up with is her title was like vice president of information technology. And then she put a dash and she put CIO equivalent, because the work she was doing was essentially what a CIO was doing. And she felt she could get away with saying that. That became her job title. Vice President of Information Technology dash CIO equivalent, or she might have put in parentheses CIO equivalent. Sometimes if you can't put it in the title, you put it in like, held CIO equivalent responsibilities, just as an example, right? Sometimes you have a title, but it doesn't really do justice to what you did. So I had a client whose title was marketing analyst, and you don't want to lie about the title or change the title completely, just in case. Very often, like half the companies, they'll make you an offer, you accept, then they'll go do a background check just to make sure that you actually did what you said you did on your resume. And the only thing when they do this background check, the companies are going to give them is your tenure, the years and months you worked there, and your most recent job title. That's it. So my client felt like I got to keep the word marketing analyst in here because that was my job title, but I'm really going for data scientist roles. And I had a lot of data scientist type of responsibilities. So she put marketing analyst, comma, data scientist. So the marketing analyst title was still in there, so it wouldn't be any issue, right? But she now was able to add these other keywords, data scientist, which really represented her job target. So just some ideas for you, right? And And the other example you were looking at, that was an example where my client took out CFO equivalent responsibilities. Remember? It's held divisional CFO responsibilities. Took that out because my client was going for actually a little bit more of a junior role. It was the opposite. That's how you want to think about it. If you have a gap in like no current job, try to fill that gap. Now, if it's just a month or 2 months, no big deal, right? I'd say once it starts hitting 3 or more months, it just every month more is more of an issue. And some places more than others. Like, for example, if you had worked straight for 20 years without stopping and you got a lot of promotions and you're a senior person, now you took a year off or who knows whatever, you know, not a big deal. People understand that. It's okay. Okay. But if you have recently graduated and you haven't worked in 6 months, you had a job for 2 years, now you haven't worked in 6 months, that's much more of an issue. Either way, you want to try and fill that gap, but it's even more important when you have a situation like the latter, right? How do you fill those gaps? Well, can you put in consulting? Now, employers reading your resume will see right through consulting that's made up if you never had any clients. But so you need to put at least one client in there. Like you got to say, like, so what I'm suggesting to you is do work for free. Like, if you've helped people, I had a client who was, and was like a investment manager, right? Like a portfolio manager. And he had been out of work for a little while. So his most recent work, the way he filled this gap was advisor, portfolio, investment management advisor, advised a whole. Now he did this for free. He didn't actually get paid, but he actually did it. He helped his family, his friends with their portfolios. He also traded on his own portfolio. That's how he filled it, right? Sometimes you can volunteer. And it doesn't have to be in the volunteer section of your resume. It could be at the very top of your experience section. And in that case, what you want to do is you can just like join, an association that's in a professional association that represents your job target and get involved. Help run a committee or get on the board, and that could be your most recent experience. Okay? If sometimes, if you're taking some classes, I've had clients call their most recent job title continuing education to fill a gap. Took a number of courses, including, he had a bunch of courses that were listed that had the right keywords in there. So these are just some ideas to fill these gaps. The last thing I want to mention is dated experience. If you have experience that is old, now some cases it doesn't matter. Some cases it's good. I had a client whose experience that was 20 years old was the most relevant experience on her resume because she was going back to doing that thing. It was at the top of her summary section. I had another client in IT. The thing he was doing 3 years ago was already dated. We took it off his resume, right? Because he doesn't need it because it's already dated. So it really is not a one-size-fits-all thing. When people say drop anything over 10 years from your resume, I hear these things once in a while. Forget those rules, okay? The rule is, there's only one rule, and this is, I want to leave you with this, and then we're going to get on to LinkedIn. The one rule of resume writing, forget every other rule you ever heard, is your message about why you versus the competition needs to jump off to their page and into their brains in the 15 seconds they're looking at your resume and saying no or maybe. In fact, some research says it's only 8 seconds. It's that quick. Okay, so that's the only rule. Anything that helps you get that message across about why you versus the competition quickly is good. Anything that's taking away from that is not good. Okay, that's how you want to think about it. So let's go to LinkedIn. So we just talked about the resume. Now, a couple of thoughts on LinkedIn. Now, I'm thinking most of you have LinkedIn profiles. Every once in a while, I run into someone who doesn't have a profile. I hope that's not the case for any of you. Because LinkedIn is like the grease in the wheels. It makes everything easier in the job search. Now, I already started talking about LinkedIn last month when we talked about planning and organizing about how you want to get your network set up on LinkedIn. We're not going to talk about that in this webinar. What we are going to talk about is the profile. All right, the LinkedIn profile, which is sort of like your resume, but it's on LinkedIn, but sort of, not exactly. And we're going to get into that. Now, why do you want to be on LinkedIn? Maybe you're not paying much attention to it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't like social media. Well, the fact is, they're looking for you on LinkedIn. Every search firm, everybody in human resources, half of the people that you'd work for are using LinkedIn to source candidates. I want you to show up in their searches and get clicked on. And beyond that, you can use LinkedIn, and we talked about this last time, to find people in your network that could introduce you or help you in your search. And LinkedIn's a great place, a great repository for your network. And to see who you know, you forget sometimes, or you don't even know who you know. You don't know who your network knows. LinkedIn can tell you that. And it's very, very important in a job search. We'll be talking more about that next month when we talk more about getting interviews. So free is fine with a few exceptions. Free is really going to give you what you need. Okay. You should use LinkedIn for everything. We're not going to everything in your job search. It makes everything easier. But so everything, there you see the banner, right? But what today we're going to talk about is being found and as a low-key resume, like in other words, a resume substitute. Like sometimes you don't want to send your resume. You don't want people to think, oh, she or he is so desperate for an interview. You might just want to get the informational meeting for opportunities down the road. Then you might use your LinkedIn profile as a substitute. That's what I mean by a low-key resume. And you want to show up in those searches, right? But even finding the right people, like if you reach out to people based on finding them on LinkedIn, they're going to look at your profile. I want it to be great. Okay? So with LinkedIn, it's getting set up properly first, then using it. We're going to be focused on getting set up properly. Write your profile in particular, number 2. And you'll see the first thing you do before you write your profile, make it great, is restrict access. Then you do your profile, then open up access. This is what I mean by restricting access. Under settings and privacy, which if you go to LinkedIn, I'll just show you really quickly, right? Under here, settings and privacy, right? Click on that, and then you click on visibility. See this, visibility? Edit your public profile. Well, there's a couple things. First off, scroll to the bottom. Fourth one up from the bottom. Turn this off. Share job changes, education changes, work anniversaries. I don't want you to be broadcasting you doing all this work on LinkedIn. First of all, if you're working right now, your employer might not like it if they're connected to you. And secondly, if you're making a lot of changes, it doesn't look professional because you might be sending out a lot of updates. Send one update up once you're done. So turn that off. And while you're here, go to edit your public profile, which is also in visibility, third from the top, and do a couple of things. Make sure your URL is just your name. We're going to talk more about this later. A lot of people will have their URL be like the LinkedIn default is like your name with a whole bunch of letters and numbers at the end. Get rid of that and make it your name so you can use this. You can use this URL in your emails, your cover letters, even on your resume. Make it friendly, and make yourself as visible as possible. So I don't want you to announce to the world that you're making all these edits on your profile, but I do want you to enable you to be found. So turn everything on here. Be as visible as possible. Okay, let's go back. So the key to a great LinkedIn profile is to leverage your resume's verbiage, quote, whenever possible, unquote. And I say whenever possible because first off, you just did a lot of great work on your resume. You've got a very targeted pitch that's going to resonate with your audience. You've got accomplishment-oriented bullets. It's super concise, right? Very, very important things that you want all those things on LinkedIn. But sometimes you need to change LinkedIn. Even though you want all those things on LinkedIn that I just shared, sometimes because LinkedIn is different in certain important ways in a resume, you may need to change your profile, maybe. Here are the differences you want to keep in mind. So first off, you can and should have different resume versions for each job target. For your profile, you can only have one profile. If you have more than one profile, you have 2 accounts on LinkedIn, you should delete one. You're going to confuse your network. It's going to mess up the ability of LinkedIn to be useful to you. Trust me on this. So you can only have one profile, So that means, well, what do you do? If you have 2 or 3 job targets, do you have a broader profile to encompass all those job targets? Well, that's good in one way, but on the other side, you're watering down your message for any one of those job targets. Or do you just have a profile that speaks to one of these job targets, one of these resumes? That's good, but it's not good for the other job targets because you're not going to be found for those job targets, right? So there's no one right answer. This is a conversation I have with clients all the time. We try to figure it out. More often than not, we try to broaden it if you have multiple job targets, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we say, let target 2 and target 3 go. Just focus on target 1 with your profile right now for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. See how you do with that. So no one size fits all answer. Another important difference, just a handful of people see your resume. Way more people, 100,000 people can view your profile. So sometimes that means, well, since there's this greater visibility, should you change anything on your profile from what it was on your resume? I hope you don't have to, because what you did on your resume, if you do it the right way, is so powerful, so targeted. But sometimes you might need to, like, for example, if a dollar amount is considered proprietary, like you put like something like, 20 million in revenue on the resume, maybe you change it to a percentage or say substantially increased revenue, right? Try to find another way of saying it. Claim that someone might contest. So in other words, you feel you did this great thing. You put it on your resume, you own it on your resume. On LinkedIn, the person who feels that it was their job, even though they didn't do one thing, might have an issue with you saying it was yours. I mean, these are kind of things you have to think about, right? Just keep it in mind, okay? Another important difference, resume versus LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile doesn't mean you're looking for a job. I have a LinkedIn profile. I'm not looking for a job. Everyone should have a LinkedIn profile, whether you're looking or not. And so what do you do? So what does that mean? Should you be announcing to the world you're looking for a job on LinkedIn? Because it's not obvious if you are. The answer is no. With one exception I'm going to talk about in a second. Do not say you're looking, because they'll contact you anyway. Anybody who's using LinkedIn to source candidates for jobs that are open will not be deterred by the fact that you're not looking, or by the fact that it's not obvious you're not looking. In fact, they'll be more likely to contact you. And I know this for a fact because I've trained so many recruiters on LinkedIn, and they tell me all the time, uniformly, we have a bias against what we call active candidates. We like passive candidates. We have a preference for the ones that don't throw it in our faces that they're looking. It's almost like playing hard to get. Look, if you're out of work and you're looking, no big deal. It's okay. But you don't have to throw it in their face that way. Okay? It's not going to help you. It's only going to hurt you. And lastly, you might get the wrong kind of attention. If you say you're looking, you might get all these unscrupulous, and there are a lot of unethical headhunters out there reaching out to you, and I don't want you to be bothered. Okay? Now, the one exception is this open to work thing, which if you go to my profile, you see it. Where is it? Let me go to my profile. Sorry. Hold on. We're going to need to go there in a second. Anyway. So this is my profile. You see this open to, like open to work, right? And if you click on it, I'll just stick with the slides. You'll see these 2 options. Choose who sees you're open. All LinkedIn members or recruiters only. Do not pick all LinkedIn members, because it's going to put this banner around your picture that says open to work, which is exactly what I want you to avoid. Recruiters only. It's only recruiters who have this LinkedIn Recruiter add-on to regular LinkedIn. It's a small subset of recruiters. If they have this add-on and they're using this open to work field to source candidates, I want you to show up in their searches. It's as simple as that. Okay? The last thing I want to mention in terms of difference is, so you turn this on, and then you'll fill that section out. It's very self-explanatory. Lastly, LinkedIn is social media. Resumes are old-fashioned media. What does that mean? Well, LinkedIn is more social by definition. It's about networking, building relationships, keeping in touch. It's about that, finding people and reaching out to them. So you can use words like I. You can stick with the resume language like created, led, or you could say I created, I led, right? You could say that on LinkedIn because it is social, you know? Don't say Robert Hellman created, Robert Hellman led. Don't use that third person language. It's off-putting. It doesn't encourage connection, and LinkedIn is about connection, about building relationships. So that's the last thing. Okay. Now, LinkedIn, it's so important to have a profile that will help you to be found when people are looking to source candidates on LinkedIn for openings. I want you to show up at the top of those searches and get clicked on. So the keywords are super important. You got to have the words in your profile that they are going to be typing in to source candidates that are going to resonate with hiring managers and people doing recruiting. And very relatedly, you want to fill out your profile because so you don't want to have these blank, sparsely filled out profiles that you see a lot of on LinkedIn because you're missing an opportunity to get the keywords in when you do that. And let me just show you another thing about that too. This is just important. Like if you look at my profile, for example, I got this headline. I wanted to do this anyway, so I'll do it now. You got the headline here. We're going to talk about that in a second. You've got the about section. It's like a summary section of your resume. Look what LinkedIn does. It only shows the first 3 lines, and then it says see more. So if they click see more, that means they want to see more about your background. Give them what they want. So fill out this section, and you'll be getting the keywords in that'll help you show up in search results by doing that. Same thing with the experience sections. Hold on a minute. See how it says like see more for all these experiences? Like right here. It's only 2 lines. See more. See more, right? Give them what they want, or they'll just look at the first 2 lines and they'll be happy. Okay? While we're here, I just want to show you, like there are some sections we're going to talk about that are not on your resume. So the about is like the link, section up here is like the summary section of your resume. The headline isn't exactly like that finance director headline. It's more than that. You want it to be keyword rich, so you show up in searches. It's super important. You also, the experiences are like what's from your resume, education from your resume. You can pull some of this stuff from your resume too. Put it here, right? Volunteering, right? You put only what's relevant, right? There is no skills section on your resume like this. This is a thing. This is where you can do keyword stuffing. Like this is a place where you can get keywords in there that can help you to be found in searches. So you should do like if you want to be like if you're like a software developer, like every permutation of software developer should be in here. Software development, software engineering, game development. You tell me like project manage, like anything that's related to that. Programming, whatever. You throw it in there. You never know how they're going to be searching, and use a lot of use like you can do at least 50 skills. I think they just raised it. Try to do all 50 slots with every permutation of what they would hire you for, and then or what they would search on. And then you can sort these by clicking the pencil icon, and then there's another menu behind it where you can sort these, get the top 2 that are most relevant at the top here. Okay? The top 2 that are most relevant at the top, because when people are looking at your profile, they're going through your profile and they're going through and they're going through and they're not clicking on show all 49 skills. No one's doing that. What they're doing is they're just seeing the top 2. The show all 49 skills is good for the search results, but it's not good for anybody who's just scrolling through your profile. So what you want to do is make sure these top 2 skills are the skills that people are going to care about when they're looking at your profile, that are going to resonate. So you can reorder them when you click on the pencil icon. Another thing that you can do, so by the way, these endorsements, do not worry about them. Nobody cares about it. LinkedIn has even said, I've heard them say it's a poorly implemented feature. It's just too easy to click on endorsement. It means nothing that I got all these endorsements. It just says I'm good at getting endorsements, not that I'm good at executive coaching. These people have no idea. That's what it is. What is useful is recommendations. Now, you don't need 46 recommendations. 3 is good. I mean, you don't have to do this. I don't want you to feel like you can't use LinkedIn without getting recommendations. You totally can. But if you think you can get a couple people to recommend you on LinkedIn, you should do it. And it can be useful. and you see, fill out these sections as much as you can, right? You go to add profile section, and that's where you can try to fill out as many sections as you can to get the keywords in there. For all the reasons I just said, it's only going to help you. So I just summarized a lot of what we're going to go through here. I just want to what I want to do is sort of summarize what I just said and make it a little bit more real for you, right? How do you know if you have the right profile keywords? Well, first off, think about the search strings your audience might be entering. Okay. Think about like the words. If you're like, say you're like a product, you want to be like head of product development. I'm making this up, right? Head of product development. What do you think they're typing in to find a head of product development? If, for HR recruiters looking to source candidates, they're probably typing the words product development in. They're probably typing in head or SVP or chief product officer. Like if those are the words you think they might be typing in, you want to make sure they're in your profile everywhere, as much as starting with the headline, the about, your experiences, all of it. That's how you need to think about this. Look at other profiles for ideas by searching for profiles using the keywords that you came up with, because you might see other keywords that others are using in their profiles that you might say, hey, that's a good idea. I'll throw that in my profile. Check out the job postings, because that's a great source of sort of intelligence on what your target audience is looking for. Make sure you're giving them what you're looking for in your resume. It's not just for LinkedIn, by the way. You should also do it for your resume to figure out how to pitch yourself in your resume. Okay. All right. So, check out LinkedIn. You just do some research, basically, right? Thought leaders of journals in your sector. Now, the keywords matter everywhere. So don't forget about the headline, the skill section we already talked about, job titles, company names. We're going to just talk about these a little bit more. Okay. So this is a profile checklist, right? You want to have a complete profile, fill out the section, like the picture. If you don't have a picture, people are going to say, like, why don't you have a picture? What are you hiding? What's wrong? Because almost everyone has a picture. Make it a business picture, like you're ready to talk, like you're looking into the camera, right? Make sure you're looking right at them. Like, hey, let's have a business conversation. Okay? Like, not where your face is tiny or you're looking away like this or you're looking up like that or you got your arm around 10 other people. No. I want it to be like, hey, let's talk. That's the picture you want. Okay? Have a keyword-rich headline, keyword-rich functional descriptions to job titles, fill in the job description, include the current position, have the right organizational name. We'll talk about that in a second. Use all 50 slots in the skill section. We talked about that. I mentioned this before. If you want to get the slides, you're going to get the recording from Kate. You'll get that, I don't know, in a day or two. If you want to get the slides now or right after this webinar, just type this into your browser, hccgo.net/NJIT21925, and you'll get the slides, hccgo.net/NJIT21925. Fill out a form or skip the form and you'll get taken right to the slides. The form is really just if you want to get on my mailing list for occasional tips, like once a month. Let's talk about the headline. Here's an example of a really keyword-rich headline for a client who was a project manager. My client said, what words are they going to be typing in for project management for the roles I'm interested in? Well, they'll probably type in project management. They might type in program. They might type in product development. They might type in agile. I want to make sure these are all in here. Same with my client who was an HR business partner. I said, what words do you think they're going to be typing in? She said, I think they're going to be typing in HR business partner. And we put that in there, right? Performance management, talent acquisition, all words that she thinks they might use, right? That's how you do it. I like to create this in Microsoft Word and then copy it from Word right into LinkedIn because that way you can get like these symbols in here. LinkedIn has like no formatting on its own. If you copy from Word, sometimes you can get like symbols like these little bullets or fat bullets in there that make it look a little nicer instead of say commas. Title and company. You want to make sure you choose a company name LinkedIn recognizes. So I could have put NY University, right? Or I could have just typed it in because I like to call it that. No, I wanted to put the NYU so I would get the logo in there. First of all, it looks better. And secondly, that means that LinkedIn recognizes the company. The company has put a LinkedIn company page on LinkedIn, and that means LinkedIn is going to suggest you to other people who taught at NYU, in my case, because I taught there, or will suggest you to other people or other people to you. And LinkedIn will help you with that, facilitate the networking. Keywords to job titles. I could have just said adjunct instructor. Instead, I added all these keywords because it's going to help me show up in search results for the things I care about. We talked about this. We talked about the recommendations. And really, that's about it. So I think just in summary, what I would say is there's a lot of overlap between resumes and LinkedIn profiles, but there are also some very important differences that you need to take into account. I think that I think, but the key things that overlap are positioning, thinking about your audience, having a very concise message, like very concise wording, bullets, accomplishment oriented. That's very important, right? Keyword rich. It should be keyword rich in the resume too, but it matters even more on LinkedIn. Okay. And you also want to take advantage of some of the other things that LinkedIn gives you that you can get on your profile that you can't put on your resume, like recommendations, like this huge skills section where you do keyword stuffing. Okay, like some of the other sections you can go through where it says add profile section that might get you to share some other things that are maybe just too much for your resume, but it will just help you to be found on LinkedIn. And just remember to fill out your LinkedIn profile. All right, let's take some questions.
Thanks so much, Rob. If folks want to write questions in the chat or unmute themselves, feel free. We have about 10 minutes and Rob will gladly answer any questions you may have.
I answered every question you could have. I'm so impressed with my presentation. Like, you have no
Yes, very
questions.
bright alumni.
Wow.
Good evening, Rob. My name is James. And actually have a question regarding the position I'm holding. So I've been holding the same position for about 5 years. However, my company has a title progression. So I've been, associate engineer to staff engineer, but holding the same position. In my resume, do I put like the latest position with all the responsibilities that I have held?
So I think you're asking me, should I just put the latest